Hi, Amber. Thanks for sending your new essays, and I apologize for the delay, but I have been traveling, so I didn't have access to my computer, unfortunately. But let's get into this because I know you're probably pretty excited to get your feedback. Now, I wanted to address the question you asked about discussing both sides in essays and that it is recommended and so forth. Yes, you can do that. And in many cases, it not only is it a good idea, but it's necessary. So, for example, when an essay question asks you to discuss both sides, or if it says discuss both views and give your opinion, or things like that, you absolutely need to address both sides. However, if it says, to what extent do you agree or disagree, or do you agree, or any sorts of questions like this, where they're not telling you very clearly that they expect you to give both sides, then it's really up to you. Now, let's talk about what's important to remember here. Um, the really important thing is making sure that what you plan to discuss in your essay, whether it's just one view or both views, that you state it very clearly in your introduction. Okay? So, and I think I might have touched upon this um, in my last correction. Okay? So here, for example, where we have to what extent do you agree or disagree, you may think that it has a negative effect on families and individuals, but not society. Let's just say, for example, if that's the case, you need to state that very clearly in introduction, because remember, in Band 7, Task Achievement, it says position is expressed clearly throughout the response. Throughout is the key word there, okay? Because throughout means from the beginning to the end. So this is what's important. That whatever position, whatever you're going to actually talk about in your body paragraphs, you state this very clearly in your introduction. I hope that is clear. Let's take a look at what you actually wrote here today. Maybe I can give more feedback based on what you wrote. All right, so to what extent do you agree or disagree? Experts throughout both the developing and developed world have debated whether junk food taking over traditional meals has had a positive or negative impact on people, their families, and community. Personally, I agree that it has had a negative impact. This essay will discuss the above statement using examples from the University of Toronto and the USA government to demonstrate points and prove arguments. Okay, so great. You said that it has a negative impact. So what do I expect to read in the paragraphs? I expect to read 2 paragraphs about why it has a negative effect. All right. Anything else that you write is it doesn't help your task achievement and it doesn't help your coherence and cohesion. All right, because you have told me what I'm going to read. All right. So hopefully this is what you've written. If you've written anything in favor of fast food, then that's a problem because you would have needed to say that here in this sentence. Okay. Let's see what you actually did. On the one hand, there is ample evidence that fast food has undeniably helped individuals. There it is. You see, this is where you're going wrong. If you are going to have a paragraph talking about the positives of this, then you really needed to say that up here. Okay? It could have been something like, personally, while there are advantages to fast food, on the whole, I believe it has had a negative impact. It's that simple. Okay? That's what I need you to do. If you're going to discuss both sides of the argument, you need to make it very clear in your introduction, okay? Especially in that thesis statement there. All right, let's keep going. The central reason behind this is that groceries expenses, it's an odd expression, groceries expenses. Maybe how about food costs, I would say. Food, not groceries. I understand what you mean, but you're trying to distinguish it from prepared food. But I think if you had said food costs have increased immensely over the past few years and people are actually saving money by eating out, For example, recent empirical research by the University of Toronto demonstrated that most Canadian students were saving over 20% of their grocery budget after they decided to eat from fast food chains rather than having a homemade meal. Therefore, it's conclusively clear that junk food has its advantages. Careful that junk food is not the same as fast food. Okay? Junk food could also be chips and cookies and cakes. Fast food is something different. All right? Fast food is the food that is prepared from burger places or like falafel stands or kebab, skewers and things like that. Like those are all considered fast food. Junk food is something a little different, okay? Um, Now, the other problem that I have with this is that you're only talking about individuals. What about family and society? Okay? In any case, you don't absolutely have to talk about both of those things in this paragraph, but let's see what you did in your next one. On the other hand, although there is a case for the perks of consuming fast food, the impact of constantly doing so cannot be overstated. This is largely because people tend to gain weight, which has a negative effect on their health and can conclude with death. For example, the US government reported that in 2022, 35% of the disease, whoa, careful. No, I think you mean deaths, okay? You can't use deceased like this. It's no. Were attributed to obesity. Consistent with this line of thinking is that by not having dinner together, families are also spending less time with one another. Thus, it is possible to state beyond doubt that dining away from home has its drawbacks. Okay, so here you mentioned one sentence about family. That's not enough. You really needed to explore this a little more in detail, all right? You needed to give it a little more support. You needed to extend it a little more, okay? And then, of course, you were also talking about the individual as well. Let's see. Okay. From the arguments and examples given, I firmly believe that people should not rely solely on eating out. Or remember, it's not just eating out; it's eating fast food. Okay, eating out, you can eat at a myriad restaurants, some health food restaurants. I mean, remember, this is about fast food specifically, so this is too general. It is predicted that if people continue on this path, deaths by obesity will increase 15% by 2025. All right. Now, I know that we suggest to end with a prediction, but that prediction needs to be much more general. It needs to be kind of like an open-ended thing that is thought-provoking in some way. So, how about it is predicted that if people continue down this path, um, the health of society as a whole will decline. Okay, something like this would have been better, more appropriate. All right, so let's go back to this essay. I want to see your word count because this feels, I don't want to say that it's under length, but it does feel rather short. Yeah, 291 words. So it was okay, but I still want you to do a few things to improve this essay. Um, you wanted to spend a paragraph talking about the positives of fast food. You could have, but you needed to do it the way I said in the beginning. That for me would have been the best way to do this. So, for example, you could have said that I believe that it has a positive impact on individuals, but it has a negative impact on families and society. Okay, so I think that would have been a better approach here. Here, however, you were just saying, oh, it's good for individuals because it's cheap. All right, so that wasn't really great because then you talked about individuals again and how it's bad for them because of their health. So I think that doing it the other way would have been better. And then let me tell you what I think you could have talked about. So let's say you talked about individuals. You could have talked about, yes, that it's cheaper and that especially for singles living alone, it's not always practical to cook a meal. And it's time consuming. So for many people who live alone or work very long hours, this is really a wonderful way to get sustenance at a low cost and with relative ease. Okay, so you could have talked about that. And then Here, you could have talked about how it's negative for the family. You touched upon it, but it really wasn't developed at all. And so it felt very underdeveloped for me. Not having dinner together, families are also spending less time with one another. The result of this is a loss of family bonds, of weaker connections between family members, and even a rise in divorce rates. Okay, and then you could give us a statistic about that. Okay, so this is what I mean by developing this idea. Then, what you could have done is you could have talked about how this is affecting society. So, you could have said that, in fact, it was recently shown in a study that 1 out of 2 marriages ends in divorce in the United States. Okay. Another thing that you could have talked about is the loss of food culture, because remember, this is not just if fast food is good or if fast food is bad. The essay has also asked you to talk about something else. Traditional food is being replaced. What about the traditional food? You didn't talk about traditional food at all. So instead, you made this about, is fast food good or is fast food bad? Well, that's only part of the story. You're supposed to talk about the loss of this traditional food. So what you could have talked about here is you could have said that, yeah, we're losing a lot of our food culture, a lot of the traditions that are associated with food, and a lot of the recipes. And this is a loss of heritage in many cases for different cultures, societies, communities. Okay, so it's a really big loss if instead of eating traditional foods from our region, we're having like, KFC or something. Okay, so these are the things that you should be talking about when you're aiming for a higher level um, score. Okay, the grammar was fine. You can see I didn't really correct anything. Vocabulary, fine. There were just a couple of little things I thought were awkward, but nothing major. For me, the biggest problem here is task achievement. All right, so let's see what you can do in your next essay to improve that. Okay, we've got a letter here. Why did I think that you were doing um okay, maybe I didn't. Okay, for some reason I thought you were doing academic, but I have no reason to think that. Now, this is an informal letter, so yes, you can use contractions. Absolutely, it wouldn't be appropriate in a formal setting, in a formal letter, but in an informal, it's absolutely fine. So let's see what you said. Dear Casey, I am emailing you from Orlando already. I arrived a few days ago. I am truly sorry we couldn't meet up while I was in Fort Lauderdale. I was really looking forward to, forgot the word, seeing you since it has been so long. We have so much to talk about. As you know, it was a business trip and I was caught with a T, up in tons of work. I really didn't have a choice. You remember Lydia, my demanding and strict boss. She required my presence in all meetings. It was exhausting and I barely made it to dinner at the hotel where we were staying. You're missing a word here. I know you want to see me as well. So you're missing a word again here, was thinking about taking my vacation days earlier this year so I could visit you. Maybe this time you can show me around since I missed out on all the fun of the city. And who better to take me out than you? I can even meet your new boyfriend, Jacob. Let me know what you think of this so I can request my days off on time. I hope to see you soon. Say hi to your mom for me. Love, Amber. Okay. This is nice. I like it, but obviously there were some problems with grammar in this one. You could see that I corrected a handful of things. And in a letter that's so short, you really don't have the leeway to make a lot of grammatical mistakes, okay? So I want you to be a little more careful because these were pretty basic grammatical mistakes, like missing words here. So be a little careful with that, okay? All right, so you've got quite a bit of feedback to work with. I hope it's helpful. I liked the letter on the whole. I thought you did a good job in terms of task achievement. For me, the weak part was grammar. Okay. And then, of course, you have all the feedback for your task too. So I'm looking forward to seeing more work from you. I'll try to get it to you quicker this time. And okay, good luck with your next set.